What's good, peoples? Um, so I'm thinking a lot about what I'm learning about Mormonism, about the LDS Church since I've been here um, in Utah, and I realize that uh, even with all of the crazy stuff that crazy stuff or uh, unorthodox stuff about their religion, they still fundamentally, because it's woven into their religion, they still fundamentally understand uh, the importance of family. Now, don't get me wrong, the origins of the LDS Church, um, re, they have a lot of polygamists, right? Because polygamy is the woman can also have multiple spouses, but what they call polygamy um, is actually polygyny. But though the origins of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had a lot of polygyny um, involved, where Joseph Smith was stealing other people's wives and so on and so forth. Um, the spiritual theology of their religion in relation to how you solidify yourself in the third heaven, right? As a family or a sealed unit, right? Now, they went too far when they decided to teach their followers that if you weren't inside of this particular, religious belief, um, that you fall down into a lower uh, prison place or whatever, or I forget the totality of it, but my point is they went too far with their religion. They went too far with the requirements that it took, right? You had to confess that Joseph Smith was the prophet that restored the true church back to the world and all this kind of stuff. In addition to a whole bunch of other stuff that I have learned, especially as of recently. I have not read really much of the Book of Mormon or anything like that, but just in my research and learning from ex-Mormons and all of that kind of stuff. But it's just crazy because it's showing me, even with all of the craziness that they have, right? It's still showing me that what united them, right? Behind a bunch of stuff that was probably a bunch of fabrication, right? What united them was the concept of family, the concept of being together, right? For all time. Now, this is generally the way that what I understand or understand of African spiritual concepts in terms of our ancestors, who live in the heavens, right? And the heavens don't necessarily mean up necessarily, but that their spirits are still with us, but in another realm, right? They're still alive, still living, without a body, all of that kind of stuff. But there's no requirement that says, this, that, or the other. You got to believe this, you got to believe that, blah, 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 right? It's really all about character. Um, Character in African spirituality is what allows you to live on, allows your personality, your soul to live on in an elevated state, as an elevated ancestor or an ancestor who has wisdom, right? Or who lived a life worthy of wisdom, right? Um, and so there's similar concepts. So, but it just really kind of brought me back, boom, to family, right? Of course, there's a pressure that is placed on the Mormon man because he is required not only to save himself through his own commitment to this religion or whatever, but he is also required to save his entire family because only the man can be the priest, right? That's a whole nother thing. The whole racist concept behind it, I still have yet to dive into much of that. I've seen some things here and there. Um, and I'm sure I'll see it as I read the book, but this is just something that I'm curious about. It's nothing that I want to join or anything like that. I'm too individual. I'm too African for that. If I can even put that identity on myself as an African, I know that my ancestry is that, but I know that I'm beyond this identity, this physical body. We're not going to go there. My point is, it just revealed to me the importance of family, and it made me think about a video that I recorded, and I was gonna post it, but I can't find it. It's somewhere. I think it might be on my other memory card, wherever that is. But a video that I never posted, that I recorded, and I was talking about my family. I was talking about my mother and my father, and how, as much. And I was even talking to my mom about this the other day, but they've been married, and I'm not saying that everybody that is married for this long is supposed to stay together or isn't supposed to stay together, whatever. But when I look at them, my parents have been married for 40 years. 40 years. And they're 57 years old. 58 now for my dad. My mom would be 58 in June. They got married at 17 years old. Raised 5 boys. And with all of the stuff in my upbringing, everybody has something in their upbringing that had traumatized them or that was painful for them. And so I'm not trying to do whatever, but even with my pain, my trauma from my childhood and the things that hurt me or whatever, and my parents were good parents. Even with all of that, I still see the reality that if you're going to hold a family together, right? If you're going to hold a family together, you're going to have to deal with some crazy shit. Because you got to remember, this is 2 or more, with the children and everything. 2 completely different people. Designed differently. Who think differently, who see differently, who feel differently, who have different capabilities. Trying to hold together a relationship that is strong enough for many children to be raised with, like that strong of a foundation that the children can be raised and blossom and be fruitful in their lives. That requires love. Yes, it's important that you know who you're with and you know how they're designed and all of that kind of stuff. It's very important. Matter of fact, let's talk about that. Because if you don't understand that your partner or partners or however you are living your life, right? If you don't understand that they may fundamentally be a certain way and they can't really change that, or at least they can evolve that, but they can't see it your way, right? To know that gives you the understanding that that's just something you have to accept. So that's powerful. It's important, right? But at the same time, if we never had these charts, if we never had, this knowledge, if we never had any of this science, these self-knowledge modalities, if we never had knowledge of the stars and their effect on us and so on and so forth, what we do have is the ability to still ourselves and listen and choose, because everyone knows this concept, because everyone wants and needs this concept. But listen with love. Love is impossible to describe or to put a definition to. In human design, of course, there are the gates of love and the different kinds of love that humanity embodies. But when I speak of love in this moment, I'm talking about the love that undercurrents, the love that is the foundation of all of existence, right? The love that understands that I am you and you are me and we are everything and everything is one. That love that connects, that holds all of it together in human design is right here, all in the G center. They're all in the G center. This is the core, right? The equivalent to the heart chakra. If in a person, the love can hold together all of these different energies, gates, archetypes, and I'm in my mind in the camera, I'm personality side and design side and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, yeah, depending on how you see in this video, but so in my mind, that's what I'm seeing, my inner vision, right? But all of these different archetypes, these different gates, these different lines, these different colors, these different tones, these different bases, the configuration of that in the centers and how we're made up. But it's all held together by the magnetic monopole. It's all held together by source, love. So beyond all the technicalities of that, what I'm saying is that if you do not have that element in your relationship, the tapping in, the true tapping into source energy, right? Love, foundational love, universal love energy, right? If you do not have that, if you're not conscious and aware of that right there, and the more you're spending time in your meditation, the more you're spending time doing the things that you love, the more you're spending time with your ancestors and with yourself, really, and with the, ritual, if you want to call it ritual, but spending time communing is what I'm saying. Communing with all of your forces, communing with yourself, communing with the oneness that is the source or the creatrix or quote unquote God, right? When we're doing that, when we're stilling ourselves and just being that, that's when in our relationships, the more we practice it, the more we practice it, the more we practice being God, we can be God with one another. We can forgive one another like God. We can love one another like God. We can respect one another like God. We can relate to one another like gods. We can create together like gods. That's when the mirror, and when you start to see each other on that level, when you start to see each other's divinity, when you start to see each other's divinity, even if they haven't realized it yet, but you see it in them. That's what the namaste is. I see the divinity in you. I recognize my mirror. Not only does it help you to see others, even when your physical, your personality mind is judging them and doing all of this and that and whatever the case may be, seeing them as beautiful or whatever. No matter where you see a person on the spectrum, your divine self sees another divine self and says, yes, I recognize you. In love. And so then you're not as apt to give in to the ego when they say something that offends your personality mind, offends your fleshly self, right? Because you realize maybe they're just not in their divine self right now. Maybe we're not seeing each other, but I still see her. I still see her. I still see him. I still see him. I still see us. I still see one. The oneness. The union, the yoga. And therefore I can still treat them with love. I can still receive them with love. It is the transcendence of the ego in those moments. We're not trying to prove anything. Even though we can. I can. When I know from knowing my design. It doesn't matter what your design is. It doesn't matter what your design is. If you're spending time with your divine self, as your divine self, you already know. So very grateful for this moment, and I'm so very grateful for all of you who are watching, who are sharing, who are commenting and engaging with me and listening to my thoughts and my revelations and my artwork and my prophecies and my judgments and everything else. My mistakes, my stories in general. I appreciate you. Appreciate my family, my friends. And I pray that your day today is as divine as I feel in this moment. I love y'all as I love myself.